What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to 2024 on the channel, which is, I guess, weird to say because I technically did upload a video on the 1st, but that was recorded last year, which is weird to say, but we're in 2024 now. I was going to come out with a different video today, but it's taken me a bit longer than expected, so I thought, okay, let's go over some updates in the world of DC that piqued my interest. Let's get into the threads updates here. Again, if somebody can create me a jingle, a little intro surrounding James Gunn social media coverage, I think that would be freaking amazing. But here we have this user saying, can you share any updates on the Superman Legacy production preparations? And he says it's going swimmingly. And this is great to hear, obviously. I mean, we have heard before that things are very on track for the tentative, well, it's not even tentative anymore. It looks like everything is going forward in March this year. I don't know if I can say that about everything. The Batman too, what's going on there? But either way, it's going swimmingly, sets being built, costumes being finished, actors studying roles, prosthetics and VFX models being made, flights booked. Here we go. And this is what I mean. I made that joke about the Batman, but like the reason why I jest about that, and I'm already kind of going off on a tangent a little bit here, but in all seriousness, that's supposed to be, you know, supposedly filming around March. And look how much further Superman Legacy is along here, with James Gunn giving updates quite consistently like this. Oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing this. You know, script was done ages ago. The only thing I might do is change a line here if I feel like it. But like, you know, prosthetics, sets, this, that, and the other, casting, very much so nearly done. And the Batman is like, you know, you've got Matt Reeves and Matt Tomlin over here with that little cat meme just going crazy on the laptop. And what's also cool about this as well, you know, sets being built. I assume that's in Atlanta, as James Gunn said. That's where the sound stages are. A lot of people are talking about Leavesden, just outside of London, but that's having a massive expansion plan. That's not obviously been done right now. So these sets that are being built for Superman Legacy, I mean, would that mean that they have to move them eventually? But costumes being finished is also interesting because, you know, he also mentions prosthetics. And we did have just a few days ago now, Maria Riela de Faria. I am probably butchered that name, but I don't think you pronounce it as Gabrielle. It's Riela de Faria. She posted a video, I believe, on Instagram that a lot of people are speculating could have been like a little peek at her audition for the engineer. She wore a fairly kind of tight-fit suit, which I guess you could say is her getting into character for the basically liquid metal body that the engineer has. And then we see other things, such as her getting a massive mold done of her face, where, you know, actors can barely breathe through their nose at the time. And what is super interesting about this to me, you know, combining this with James Gunn's threads response here, prosthetics being made, is just quite simply that I was wondering how much CG would the engineer have, because when we've been talking about James Gunn replying to fans before about, hey, will Guy Gardner's suit be CG? And he replied saying, I can't remember ever having a CG suit unless it was on a CG character. And, you know, if you know what Guy Gardner looks like, it seems like, well, why would he have a literal CG suit everywhere? But I was wondering about the engineer. But then people were pointing out to me, hey, but what about what James Gunn has done before with characters like Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy, with Karen Gillan just basically wearing a massive glove that looks somewhat metallic, the prosthetics on her face. Now, I do agree, but at the same time, you know, Nebula compared to the engineer here, the engineer is literally liquid metal naked. So I do, though, however, think, especially after seeing this mold process, that there might be a mix of CG with prosthetics. I mean, obviously, they might do that with a character like this, but I'd love to know what you think. Do you think that they're going to do a similar Nebula approach with prosthetics on the face and face paint to kind of give the metal look, but maybe mix that with a bit of CG with the body? Now, this is when James Gunn gets asked, how much of the cast do you have locked in? About 90%. And Gunn says, more. So more than 90% of the cast is locked in. We know that we have more cast members to be announced, such as Steve Lombard, Martha Kent, possibly Jonathan Kent, according to rumors. he is casting for both Jonathan and Martha, which makes me very, very happy because I think that'd be quite a nice, refreshing change to have more than just Martha in a Superman story. There is more news to come. I mean, no, in my luck, for all I know, by the time I upload this video, there could be another casting for the Daily Planet, maybe Perry White as well. There's quite a few castings that he's probably already done, but still hasn't announced. And then there's castings such as maybe Jonathan and Martha Kent that he hasn't actually quite casted yet, according to those rumors from a few weeks back. I mean, maybe by now he has, but you kind of get the idea. There is still more news to come, but overall, 90% of the cast of Superman Legacy is pretty much locked in. Let me know any fan casts down in the comments below, or if you think there's going to be still some more surprising names or characters being added to Superman Legacy that we just actually don't quite know about right now. Then we have this user saying, I'm sorry, sir, you weren't supposed to see my mental breakdown. I have no idea what they posted before this, but enjoy your vacation. While you're here, though, you like Catwoman, right? Maybe someday we can hear or see her in your projects, hopefully. And he says, yes, I love Catwoman. Now, I don't want to make a big thing about this at all. He's just saying he loves Catwoman. He didn't confirm or deny that Catwoman would be in Brave and the Bold. But it made me think, right? With Zoe Kravitz being what we can assume to be quite a big thing still in Matt Reeves' Batverse trilogy, so still appearing in the Batman Part 2, possibly Part 3. But will they make a big thing of Catwoman in the DCU? It definitely got my creative ideas flowing just because this Bruce Wayne is 8 to 10 years into his career at the very least. So 8 to 10 years in, maybe possibly 12 years in, you'd have to think that Selina Kyle is in the picture. What's the relationship like? I mean, I know the movie's going to be more about Damian Wayne and Bruce Wayne, and they're going to, dot in some Bat family members in there, but are they going to also have Catwoman dance in and dance out, potentially? I really don't know. It's questions like this which are always on my mind. Up next, this one's about Creature Commandos. I've seen quite a few people talk about this, so I just wanted to give my take on it. So we have James Gunn reply here saying, Creature Commandos 2024, and then this user says, are we talking early or late 2024? And Gunn says later. Now, a lot of people are automatically assuming as a result of this that this means like, okay, late 2024, like fall, so September, October, November, that is when we're going to get the first DCU project, Creature Commandos. But I wouldn't assume just because he says later, it means at the fall of 2024 this year, which is still really crazy for me to say we're in 2024, guys. Like, what the hell? So I take it as, I mean, the question asked to him was, are we talking early or late 2024? And he just says later. So do you see what I'm going with there? Just because he said later, he didn't say late 2024. So later could mean later than early 2024, as the user pointed out. So I'm thinking that Creature Commandos, I'm not saying it will, but I wouldn't rule out maybe even like a July, August release. Now up next, in addition to my news roundup video that I did around the 27th or the 28th of December, we talked about the Superman Legacy suit and some of the replies that Gunn was giving. And we've got another reply here that I didn't include in that video with this user saying, why? I mean, probably we're going to watch the suit by first time in a bad quality photo by a filtration. Isn't it best to show it before with good quality? And James Gunn says, we don't shoot for over 2 months. So I think a lot of people may be misconstruing what James Gunn means by 0.0% of seeing the Superman Legacy suit before they start filming. Meaning that I think a lot of people are like, but why? What? We're just going to get a bad photo of it, when it's on set by some paparazzi shot like 100 miles away or something. I mean, maybe not that far away, but he's just saying, look, I'll probably show it to you, but we don't shoot for like over 2 months. So there's like 0.0% you're going to see it before filming actually commences. But when the filming actually commences, you can be rest assured. I mean, this is me putting words in his mouth here, but this is what I'm vibing. That's what he means by saying 0.0. That's what he means by we don't shoot for like over 2 months. I'll give you a look at it, but not until we shoot. And then we have this user saying, why? Don't you want to hype the movie? We know what the Superman suit looks like. Why hide it? And Gunn's like, do you? I like the little troll here. Are there trunks or no trunks? Exactly. I mean, I don't think it's like, I mean, different directors take different approaches. I mean, I think I spoke about this in my previous video. Matt Reeves kind of hyped up the movie, as this user is saying here, and I think that's a good thing too, through the camera test. Same with Todd Phillips showing Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck in the camera test and Joker in the camera test, and that's a cool way of doing it. Now, Gunn, for all we know, could actually do a similar thing. Maybe the suit reveal might not even be a photo, it could be a camera test, but he might just not do it until they're actually filming. Now, speaking of James Gunn, the DCU Superman Legacy, we have this article here from Variety titled Phoebe Dynevor breaks down her bold, fair play role and auditioning to be James Gunn's Lois Lane. It was a whirlwind. So this is what she had to say, and I know a lot of people are kind of reading into quite a bit of this, but I just wanted to let everyone know about it, give my take on it. So here we have them saying she also has a healthy perspective on the roles that didn't work out, like Lois Lane in James Gunn's upcoming Superman Legacy, for which she was in the final round of contenders. It was a whirlwind, and then I realized that it was over. But it was great, she says, explaining that Lois Lane is the type of role she wants to play. She saves Superman. She's the brains. She's actually the fearless one. Now, that's what I mean by a lot of people like, oh my god, did she just give away that in the movie she saves Superman? No, I mean, no. Hold your horses for a second there. So fair play to her with the article saying that she has a healthy perspective on roles that didn't work out. And just also saying a little bit about Lois. And some people are disagreeing with this online, but I truly would say, do you know who Lois Lane is? When she says she saves Superman, she's the brain. She's actually the fearless one. Now, that's not saying, she's not saying inherently that Clark isn't fearless, that he can't save himself or anything, but Lois, you know, grounds Clark. I mean, especially with this movie talking about reconciling his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. Clark in this movie, I mean, we don't quite know the relationship between Lois and Clark at this point, other than Gunn saying he's a full-fledged 30-year-old full-on reporter kind of thing. So he's been at the Daily Planet for a while. Maybe they're together. Maybe she knows he's Superman. Maybe she doesn't quite know, and she's going to find out in the movie. But Clark's humanity is defined through not only, obviously, his human upbringing, his adoptive parents, Jonathan and Martha, but most certainly I don't think anyone misses the fact of how important Lois Lane is with his human connection. I mean, that's why you get some Elseworld stories like Injustice, in where, you know, Clark kind of goes off the deep end without a Lois Lane there. Now, at the same time, I do also get, without getting into a whole bloody video essay over this, how some people say they don't strictly like it being defined by just that, because Clark's love of humanity does go beyond just Lois Lane, and I 1000% agree with that. But yeah, the whole description here, I thought it was quite nice. You're also going to have the reporter side, very much so, and I think Lois is going to be so sophisticated. I want her to be, and rightfully so. She's a very smart character. She's very, very, very intelligent. She is most certainly not just writing about baseball in a column on the Daily Planet. She is a world-renowned reporter for a very good bloody reason. I mean, granted that she might not have won any awards in this iteration right now, because, I mean, we don't know any details about that just yet, but you get my point. Just thought this was cool to go over. And, man, again, to have a conversation with her about what she knows about Superman Legacy would be amazing. So up next, guys, we need to talk about Harley Quinn in the DCU. Now, some of you may be like, wait, why are we talking about this? We haven't even got to Batman yet, let alone freaking, you know, Superman starting off this universe. Technically, that's Creature Commandos. Why are we talking about Harley? Well, it's always been a conversation because, after all, James Gunn worked with Margot Robbie, says he loves working with her. He's keeping characters on like Amanda Waller, Peacemaker, etc. So Margot Robbie's Harley has always been a question of, hey, will she actually be maintained as the same actor, albeit maybe there's like a slightly retconned past, you know, not being Jared Leto's Joker, because it's not like Jared Leto's Joker's canon or continuity is going to be maintained with the new DCU Batman's version of that Joker. So it's always been a bit up in the air there. So in an interview with Variety, she was asked about maintaining her role, and I actually quite like the way that Forbes took this article here, because I kind of agree with the consensus that they say. So they start by saying things have always been a bit weird with James Gunn's transition to the DCU, and I think we can all agree with that. As while it is pitched as a clean slate, he has roped off a few characters that are exceptions, namely two from his own projects, The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Exactly what we just said. But now she's been asked the question directly. Would she keep playing Harley Quinn in the DCU? And she gave about as clear an answer as you can give without coming off as harsh or ungrateful to Variety. So she says, I always wanted Harley to be a character that would get passed on to other actresses to play. The way there are so many iconic male characters, that was always the dream for her. Harley's so fun and can go in so many different directions. You put her in someone else's hands and it's like, what are they going to do with her? The options are endless. And I don't know about you guys, I completely agree with Forbes there. I mean, as they go on to say, but Robbie's answer here is very kind, a way to say she's done with the role and others can pick it up. And yeah, it's also the context of Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn in the Joker sequel, albeit that will be disconnected to the DCU. I do think, if you read between the lines there, I mean, to me, it's painted on the wall. She is absolutely more than happy to not come back. I'm not saying that means she doesn't like playing Harley, not at all. But I think the ride she's been on has been a fairly disjointed one, but she's still been passionate about the character. And when I say disjointed, I shouldn't need to go over where things started with Suicide Squad, and then how that fleshed out into other things. Obviously, you know, Birds of Prey being quite a different direction for the character. Still Margot's Harley, but clearly the DCEU was different when Ayer's Suicide Squad came out, even though that was Warner Brothers' version, if you will, to Birds of Prey. And then you had her in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. So, like, for her to then come back again, I think I wouldn't blame her, especially with how big of a star she is. It doesn't mean she doesn't like playing the role. I need to stress that. But I think she's basically saying, you know, I'm happy that Harley as a live action character now, I've taken her to such a place in where that was always the dream for her to be passed on to other actresses to play. So, you know, she even goes on to say, you put her in someone else's hands and it's like, what are they going to do with her? I think she's basically saying, I'm not really that interested in coming back. I truly do believe that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I wouldn't be against it because I do like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. But my preference, believe it or not, to conclude this little segment of this video, and I would love to know your response down in the comments below, even though we are keeping Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, John Cena as Peacemaker, I would argue, as I've said before, they're not really minor roles. I'm not saying Amanda Waller is a small role in DC, not at all. But I just don't think, as I've said before, that the general audience is like, oh my god, this is so confusing to me that these actors are the same. But Harley Quinn is more popular there. So I would say I want a recast. I would say for the DCU, if you're basically doing mostly a hard reboot, even though it can, on a technicality, be argued as a soft reboot because you have Viola Davis and John Cena and Steve Agee and Freddie Stroma and more staying on in their DCEU roles. But for the most part, the main characters from Superman to Batman to bloody pretty much every other big character out there is being recast with a new continuity. Harley Quinn's quite a reputable character in the public now. So for Harley to be still played by Margot Robbie, who had quite a few roles in the DCEU, I would say, especially with a new DCU Batman, who's going to, you know, have an Arkham series now, with Matt Reeves producing that, with pretty much guaranteed a new Joker. Yeah, you may as well do a new Harley if you ever want to get to that. And I say if you ever want to get to that because I don't think they're going to be rushing to do another Joker or Harley Quinn in the DCU. To be clear, I'm not saying that there isn't going to be a Joker or a Harley Quinn in the DCU. Of course there will be canonically. Maybe even in the Arkham series. But I just don't think they're going to go head over heels into it. But yeah, my vote would be recast Margot. I think she's basically saying the same thing. But I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. All right, guys, in the last couple of stories for today's video, we have Variety talking about the box office, some stuff about Wonka here, but we have a little bit about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, pushing Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom's domestic haul to less than legendary 81.8 million. Some of the pain is being offset internationally, which is where it's doing pretty damn well. I mean, without that, my God. I mean, it's still kind of this is what I was trying to say, the takeaway is still like, this isn't exactly great, as most people thought, but internationally, this has some legs. So with the film's global haul standing at more than 250 million, but the film, and this is the thing, which had a tangled production, cost more than 200 million to produce and tens of millions more to market. And then, as I always say, since movie theaters keep roughly half of ticket sales, which, it can't be said for every single one. Different theaters have different arrangements. And then, week in, week out, the theaters tend to keep a bit more the more the movie is in the theaters. So, but still, it is important to bear in mind that when it says it's made 200 or 250 million or whatever, that's not entirely profit. You need to also take in the ratio of Warner Brothers is only seeing 50% from all of these theaters. So it's very bad. This is why The Flash was catastrophically bad, so on and so forth. But from comicbook.com here, at least what can be said is that Aquaman 2 laps The Flash at the global box office, because there's a little bit of an update compared to that Variety article saying that Aquaman has legs. Warner Brothers' Aquaman and Lost Kingdom turned the tide on the DC box office woes to take him 272 million worldwide, surpassing The Flash's total gross in just 12 days in theaters, compared to The Flash finishing its 10-week theatrical run with 266.5 million, which is now making some people think, okay, if in just 12 days Aquaman has made 272.6 million, it surpassed The Flash's total 266 million in its 10-week theatrical run, Aquaman 2, ironically enough here, might be the first DC movie since, or should I say DCEU movie, out of all of them, since Aquaman, the first one's billion-dollar box office run, to make past 400 million. So there's a little bit of a silver lining there, by all means. I'm not trying to twist the story into saying this is like a good thing. It's still not it's still not going to really make money given the budget and the marketing and then the ticket sales and blah, blah, blah. But, at least it's going to go down as the final DCEU movie to also make the most DCEU money since the first movie. And now let's end this video off with David Ayer, which is interesting to me because on Twitter, I believe it was yesterday from when you're seeing this video, comicbook.com say, despite teasing his director's cut of 2016 Suicide Squad, which is the most interesting thing to me, and we'll get onto that, filmmaker David Ayer now says he's done talking about the film. In a series of posts on X, David Ayer started it all with a firm clarification on his position of Suicide Squad's director's cut, noting, "I'm done with DC." When asked once again if this meant he really wasn't going to fight for the release of his extended version of Suicide Squad, Ayer replied, "Nope, done and done. Very sad. You'll be fine after a good cry. I feel healthier. It's a wound that needs to heal." Which is just so interesting to me, because I've talked about in 2 news roundups, as of what I can recollect, in the past 4 months, one being fairly recent to when I'm making this video, of him quite literally saying, so let me actually read out the quote. "All I know is my unseen film plays much better than the studio release. The interest in my cut being shown seems real and organic. And Gunn, specifically here, and Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared." I mean, that's a pretty serious thing to make up if you were completely making that up. And I mean, I don't know David Ayer, but I don't think after the whole saga of what's happened since the inception of Suicide Squad and everything up until when he tweeted this, he would make that up. For him to say cut and dry that Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared is pretty serious, just in terms of he's saying, James Gunn, straight up, the head of DC Studios, told me it would have its time to be shared. He then went on to say, which I haven't covered yet, a user asked if it had anything to do with the recent changes at DC. "Nothing about the situation feels good. Studio has no interest in releasing it. It's time to run and not look back." Which doesn't make sense because not that long ago, he literally said, "Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared." Which is when another user accused Ayer of flip-flopping on whether he wanted the extended cut of Suicide Squad released on social media for years, prompting Ayer to reply, "Nah, I'm good. Don't need to be walking around with a begging bowl. Gotta protect my heart more moving forward." So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to put this out there. It's just weird to me with how he's saying he's done with DC. Nothing about the situation feels good. The studio has no interest in releasing it. And right here, I've got the receipt of him saying, not a crazy amount of time ago, only a few months ago, saying that Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared. So maybe he got sick of maybe that did happen and nothing has been updated to him from Gunn, and he doesn't want to wait about it anymore, plus being asked about it probably every single day from the fandom. Maybe he did hear that Gunn said, actually, I know I said that, but maybe I don't want to do it anymore, and he's like, well, screw DC. Who knows what the truth of any of this is. The biggest weird thing for me is him saying that Gunn said it would have its time to be shared. But let me know your thoughts on that and every single story we talked about in today's video. I really appreciate your support, guys, and you can help support me more by just leaving a like on the video. Consider subscribing to the channel if you want to stay up to date with any tiny to large DC update just like this and some of the other things that we cover here. But that is absolutely everything. Going to be working on another video releasing in the next couple of days. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.